Steve Terrell retired from the Santa Fe New Mexican last month after 4 decades as a newspaper man. His departure from the Capitol Press Corps coincides with a distinct change in how the public consumes and values its news media. NMAF producer Matt Grubb sat down with Terrell this week to talk about what's changed in the years he's been covering the legislature and New Mexico politics.
Well, Steve Terrell, thanks for agreeing to come in. It's a little unfair of us to ask you for some instant history and instant perspective. You're about a couple weeks into retirement.
That's right. I'm not used to it yet, but
sure. Sure. Well, as you put away your notepad, at least for now, is there something that you think has changed in New Mexico politics fundamentally since you started covering it?
The only thing I can think of is it's basically the same, but in elections, as far as politics go, it was starting with Bill Richardson. There's a huge influx of money into campaigns. Remember when Gary Johnson ran against Marty Chavez during Johnson's reelection bid? They both spent, I think, around $2 million a piece, something like that. I hope my figures aren't too far off, but it was piddly. Then Richardson came in, and all of a sudden it was he quadrupled that, I think, the first time he ran, and got even more the second time.
Sure.
So there's more emphasis on money coming in, at least for the governor's race, and so that's been a big change. I think we're lucky in New Mexico as far as the legislature goes. While it maybe to outsiders may seem too palsy-walsy, but at least it's not like Congress and just at each other's throats every minute. People, Democrats and Republicans, actually get together at times, and while they'll disagree on the major divisive issues of the day, they can work together to come up with compromises a lot, and some good stuff's come out of it. So that's still healthy. Maybe it's getting a little more partisan and nationalized. Every redistricting year, the national parties send in their people to, twist arms and make sure things are going their way or trying to. But other than that, no, we still have a fairly congenial legislature. Sometimes congeniality is not the answer, but it's better than just constant combat.
And you're feeling like it at least provides an avenue for progress and cooperation in some cases.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the way that the two parties communicate about politics, and really, in New Mexico, we've had some fairly active minor parties as well, but is political communication different, does it feel?
There's far more influence of FLACs, public information officers. Back in the old days, I remember if I wanted to, during the Johnson administration, if I wanted to talk to some cabinet official or somebody running an agency, I just call them up. Now they all have PIOs who are, an extension of the governor's office. That started during Richardson too.
Sure.
They kind of consolidate that. So, and they want to keep their message clear. They want to keep, a consistent message. But also, sometimes you get more honest answers if you just talk to people directly.
Sure, I would say almost all the time you get more when it's not run through a filter.
I have a lot of friends who are PIOs. I'm not trying to come dump on them, but it's for reporters and for the public. I believe it's better just to be able to talk to the person in charge or the person you need to talk to without having to go through all these layers of bureaucracy.
Sometimes you'll hear from politicians complaints about quote-unquote gotcha journalism. Does it feel like there's such a thing as gotcha journalism, or is it gotcha campaigning?
There is a lot of gotcha campaigning. I don't think I've ever participated in gotcha journalism, and I don't think I've known a lot of reporters, including yourself, and that's not the MO for most of us. So in campaigning, there's always, when you're covering a campaign, there's always the people from one side or another trying to whisper in your ear saying, you should check this out,
Sure.
So, and sometimes, you do check it out because you don't want to overlook a potentially big story, but some of it's just stuff, obviously, to embarrass the opponent with minor stuff. So.
Right. We're a year into a new governor and what is a very strong Democratic majority, not the strongest we've ever seen, but a big one. before we sort of talk about Michelle Lujan Grisham, we finished 8 years of Susana Martinez. Are you able to put your finger on what might be the lasting impact of the Martinez administration?
No, it was a very contentious time, and especially her second term went on longer. She became, I think, more isolated. But lasting impact. Well, you can argue that if she held up funding here or there, that'll have a lasting impact. But no, I can't put my finger on it right now. I'm not sure what her legacy is going to be.
Okay. Certainly the behavioral health.
Oh yeah,
it's they'll be spending a while rebuilding that system. It
yeah,
seems
that was definitely the low point of her administration, and it happened before a re-election. That was could have been more of an issue, but her opponent was Gary King, who was in charge of investigating it, so he really couldn't say that much publicly, and so that kind of tied his hands, and it helped Susana win a big re-election.
Sure, yeah, a huge re-election. We did, it seems like, as a state, maybe pay a little bit more attention to southeastern New Mexico and sort of the rise of southern New Mexico in political power in Santa Fe to some extent.
Yeah, although both the House and the Senate are controlled by
Santa Feans.
Santa Fe Democrats.
Yeah, that's true.
Brian Egoff is Speaker, and Peter Wirth is Senate President Pro Tem.
Yeah.
No, I mean the Senate Majority Leader.
Right. Mary Kay Papen.
Forgot it already.
That's right.
Mary Kay
It's
Papen,
begun.
who is from southern New Mexico.
Exactly, yeah. When we look at the oil patch, which has played such a huge role in sort of New Mexico climbing out of the economic rut that we were in, feels like maybe we're paying more attention to housing needs down there, infrastructure needs down there, that there's sort of a realization that, hey, we maybe need to, not just take from this part of the state. Yeah,
that's probably true. The oil thing is weird, though. That's always a boom and bust thing. Now people are predicting that this boom could last for many years, and but it won't last forever. And we've both seen lean times caused by falling oil prices, and
right.
So that's I don't suspect that'll be. I don't suspect those days are gone forever.
Right. Yeah. In terms of the individual bodies in the House, certainly there's a progressive flavor to it right now. There are also some incoming upstart Republicans. Well, not incoming, I guess, but folks like Jason Harper and Kelly Fajardo are sort of the vanguard maybe of some of those younger Republicans. How is the House changing, or how has it changed?
Well, of course, a few years ago, the Republicans had control of it for a couple of years for the first time in, was it 50 years? Or I forget how many years. But and that was the most contentious time that I remember, that first year. Because the Republicans kind of feeling their oats, and the Democrats are feeling left out, and they fought tooth and nail. They were more cooperative the next year. But the House is always more volatile, probably because they're elected every 2 years. Senate has 4 years, which isn't an eternity or anything, but it gives them more time to kind of settle in and not just be thinking about the next election all the time. And there's more congeniality in the Senate, certainly. Although, like I say, compared to Congress, even our state House is, everything is beautiful. But yeah, the Senate, those guys truly love each other, most of them.
Yeah.
Democrats, Republicans. I remember Peter Wirth was really sad when Clint Hardin, who was a Republican from Clovis, said he wasn't going to run for re-election. They liked, and Vern Ashbill from Carlsbad. All these guys like each other, most of them. There had been a few dissidents and hard cases here and there, but I'm sure you can both think of one. There's a lot more congeniality, a lot more compromise. They tend to be moderate. When Bill Richardson was governor, the biggest thorn in his side was not the Republicans. It was the Senate, which was run by Democrats. He and Tim Jennings, who was, I guess, Senate majority, or no, he was
pro tem. Yeah.
He was pro tem at the time. they fought like dogs and cats. But they always, they always watch out for each other, whether it's Democrat or Republican. Back when Leonard Lee Rawson, he was a Republican senator from Las Cruces, he was challenged by Steve Fishman, a Democrat. He's now on the PRC.
Mm-hmm.
And Tim Jennings basically, I think he ran ads, radio ads, talking about how great Lee Rawson was and how the attacks on him from his opponent weren't fair. And he's talking about a member of his own party.
Right.
And,
running the unfair ads. Sure, yeah.
And I'm not sure how unfair they were, but it made Tim react to those worse than Rawson did.
Yeah, yeah. Do you feel like some of that collegiality, both in the House and the Senate, is a result of the citizen legislature? And are you one of those people who thinks that this should become a full-time job for those people who
Well, I think
hold
it should. We're one of
Okay.
the very last states,
Yeah.
if not the last state. We're one of them. Yeah, I think if you're going to ask people, it'd get a more diverse group in there, and probably younger too, because most people in there are either lawyers or people who can get away from their jobs for 2 months at a time, and
Right.
go to all these committee meetings in the interim. Yeah, and this would, I think, open it up for people to run, younger people, and
Right.
hopefully more diversity. But I don't know if it's going to change. Every time they've actually, I think it was Leonard Lee Rawson who was the last one to seriously propose a salary for the legislature. Most of his own party didn't like it, but I thought it made sense.
Sure, sure. We just got about a minute left, but you've covered the PRC a lot in these last couple of years. Is this an agency you feel like New Mexico is ever going to get right?
I don't know. There's a constitutional amendment on next year's election to make it an appointed body, and they're currently engaged in a turf war with the legislature over the Energy Transition Act, who's got jurisdiction there, and no political body likes giving up any power.
Sure.
And so. But will they get the PRC has changed. Back just a few years ago when I first started covering it, the biggest rap against the PRC was they're too close to PNM. Well, now the pendulum has completely swung around, and they're the ones really questioning PNM, and it's coming at a time when PNM is championing renewable energy, there has been some change. Whether or not they get it right, I'm not sure we've gotten the whole government right, so who knows.
For sure. Well, Steve, we thank you for your time, and you're joining us for our year-end show, but we hope you'll come back for some others too.
Call me up. I got nothing to do.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks a lot.